Hey, I'm Sarah, and this is the Goddess in Training podcast. This isn't about being perfect or polished or having it all figured out. This is about what happens when you actually start listening to your body, your intuition, your patterns, your truth. I'm asking big questions and having real conversations, sometimes messy and sometimes magical, with people who've lived through it, grown through it, and still don't have all the answers. If you've ever doubted yourself, betrayed your gut, or wondered if you're the only one, you're not. Let's talk about it. Today's conversation is a sacred one. I'm joined by Reverend Laura Sabados, clairvoyant medium, sound and energy practitioner, and Reiki Master Teacher. Laura has been walking the healing path for over 30 years, but what makes her work so powerful is that she's lived every layer of it. From childhood clairvoyance that was silenced, to a near-death experience that rewired her sense of purpose, to decades of service in both traditional and intuitive healing spaces, Laura's story is one of awakening, resilience, and deep transformation. We begin by talking about the Empath's healing journey, her signature framework for sensitive souls who have spent their lives overwhelmed by the emotions and energy of others. Laura shares what it means to release what's not yours, reclaim your intuitive gifts, and finally feel aligned with your soul's path. This conversation moves through themes of trauma, spiritual awakening, energy management, and how to navigate life when you've spent too long trying to make yourself small. It's honest, expansive, and infused with the kind of wisdom that can only come from lived experience. Take a breath, ground your energy, and let's begin. Hi, thanks again for joining us on Goddess in Training podcast. I am here today with Laura Sabados. And Laura, thank you so much for joining us. We met a couple of weeks ago at a convention, and I'm just so excited to continue our conversation.
It's been rich so far, yeah.
It always is. Things just flow when you're with other people who are in this healing space. Mm-hmm. Conversations just are so organic, and they take on a life of their own. So I'm excited to keep talking.
Yeah.
So you've been in this space, Laura, for 30 years, and you describe yourself as an empath. Tell me more about your own personal journey.
When I was a kid, I was seeing a lot, hearing a lot, getting a lot of messages. And when I would share them with people I loved and trusted, they kind of got weirded out. And eventually, my mom actually kind of got threatening about it. Like, you need to stop talking this crazy business or people are going to want to lock us up. Like, they're going to lock up the family. And I was like, oh no, prison and bread and water and and so I stopped doing any of that. And that actually is a story that a lot of people are like, oh, I thought that was weird and I thought that was monsters under the bed or whatever. So it's not all that uncommon at all. And fast forward, I had a few things where spirit would come through very profoundly to give me what I needed to kind of navigate the situation. But a lot of empaths are also healers, right? Mm-hmm. They really want to help everyone feel better. They feel like if they lighten the load in an angry or a crisis situation, if they take some of that anger on for themselves, that the other person will feel better and the situation can diffuse. Well, the problem with being an empath is when you take that on, now you have it. Mm-hmm. And you can't work with someone else's energy and emotion. Learning how to release that is really, kind of the way to go. But yeah, I spent decades in the field of mental health and developmental services. So I worked a lot with people who had very limited communication abilities.
Oh, interesting.
And people would call me in on the hard cases, right, when there was something going on that they needed a problem solved, because I was reading the energy and knowing what they wanted. I could kind of see and feel what it is that they wanted, and so or needed, right? What would be their what would be helpful to them, right. And so things would resolve pretty quickly, right? But every day I'd go home and I'd be miserable. People would say, what do you want to do for dinner? And I'm like, I don't want to make a decision, because I had to sort through all that energy to find mine. And so that's a pretty typical challenge for someone who's an empath. And so then fast forward to a time where I was really starting to lean into my desire and listening to intuition a little bit more. As a matter of fact, going through a not nice divorce. Lessons, yeah, that's a whole podcast episode in itself, right? What did we learn through this divorce situation, and the karma involved in that, like healing the karma involved in that. And so during that divorce, you know, I have 2 young children at the time, and it was just, I mean, I ended up going into therapy, right? I'm like, if I can, you know, recommend it to other people, I'm going, like, let's do this. And my therapist actually recognized, like, Laura, you're very intuitive. Why are you not listening? So he knew I was very behaviorally, you know, data-driven person, science, right? Where's the proof? Where's the proof? Right? Show it to me. Yeah. And so he had me take a little notebook, and he said, I want you to collect data. What was the intuition ping? What pinged you? Did you follow it? Outcome. Did you not follow it? Outcome. So I go back in for my next appointment next week, and he says, so where's your data? And I'm like, yeah, no, I tossed it. And he's like, of all the people I know, you're the one that I know would collect the data. I said I did, but when I got to the 4th entry and it was 100% spot on, I said this is a futile effort and just switched into listening to my intuition. And so that brought me to like exploring crystal energy and exploring Reiki and some other different modalities, doing some chakra work and aura work. And so I was really on a mission.
Yeah.
And then one day a friend of mine called me up, and I knew her through the Reiki world, and she says to me, hey, I've got this clairvoyant coming in that's going to be doing some readings. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And she says, well, she's going to look at your aura and your chakras and stuff and the energy going on and give you information about it. I'm like, sure, sign me up. Let's go do this. So I get there. And I'm so excited just to even be on time, right? Rolling in there late. Because that's the other thing, a lot of times empaths and healers have a hard time separating from people because they can feel that longing and they can feel that pull. And so getting away, we're always late. We're always late. So we, you know, I go upstairs and she's like, okay, is there anything in particular you want to look at? And I'm like, was there some homework I was supposed to do to get ready for this?
Oh, funny.
And then she tuned into my energy and started reading me like a book. And I was like, what just happened?
Wow.
It was like she was reading a roadmap, right, to where I've been and what will help me take next steps. And then she, on the way out that day, she said, by the way, I'm teaching a meditation class tonight if you want to come. I'm like, yes, I want to come. And I got a grounding cord that night. And I was able to release other people's energies. And my life has not been the same since.
Wow.
It's taken a whole different trajectory.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Learning how to recognize, filter out other people's energies helps you really tap into your own spiritual gifts and tap into your own soul path. Like, what was your purpose when you came into this lifetime? And you're able to tap into that more once you get that, empathic, right, capability, which is really clairsentience, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Going back to your experience with the therapist, what a gift that was that he gave to you, and so outside of the norm, or at least my experience with traditional talk therapy. And I can imagine if I had been given that kind of gift when I was in that chaotic space of separation and messy divorce, when, gosh, you know, I felt like the one healer that I did talk to in that period of time simply asked me, well, Sarah, what do you like to do? And I froze because I was unable, I had no idea how I like to spend my time because my life was just a swirling mess. But to be given that gift, that permission to just like stop and listen is just amazing.
And the other beautiful part about that is that the next assignment was to read a book on intuition. He recommended a book.
Wow.
And I went and read the book. And I was like, whoa, like this is like really, really real, you know? And I still have the book in there. And, but yeah, lots and lots of permission to kind of see who you are and how you can move forward. And, you know, like so many people, I'm sure you're going to hear this all the time as you go forward doing these podcasts and sharing this wonderful information with everybody. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, we find those folks sometimes by happenstance and sometimes by, you know, being guided and led there. Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely my experience. And even that healer who asked that question, I mean, it still sticks with me in my cells because it was such a profound moment. And so that question alone changed me. And it took time to integrate that and realize and figure out why I had such a strong response, negative response to that question. But then it led me down the path of like, wait a minute, why, who am I actually?
What else am I not navigating because I can't tap into my own desire?
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah. Life is amazing in that way that I truly believe that we are exactly where we're supposed to be in every moment and we are guided along our paths.
I believe that too. Yeah.
So moving on to the next piece that you were talking about, meeting the healer and going to the meditation class, how did you then receive the calling to really step into helping other people?
Wow. Well, I was already in a place of helping other people. Right. I was already doing that for, at that time, about 20 years. And actually, that calling came way early on when I had a near-death experience at age 15. Yeah.
Oh, tell me about that. Oh, I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah. So, when I was 15, I was really into music and I was playing clarinet a lot, and I was doing all of these different, you know, regional bands, state band, you know, all that stuff. And I remember going to the all-state audition, which is an earned kind of slot that you get. And I went in for that audition, and you know, I was a little bit off. And then I think it was 2 days later, I was having fevers of 104. They determined that I had pneumonia. They gave me the penicillin shot, sent me home. I was still up and down, hot and cold. Headaches like nobody has ever had headaches. And they actually admitted me into the hospital, and they determined after I was already out of the hospital that what I had was mycoplasmic pneumonia, which is not a good kind to have. I had encephalitis, which is an infection in the brain fluid. And then I had spinal meningitis. So the entire cerebrospinal tract was infected and inflamed and causing it was choking off my brain. And the reason they didn't know what was going on is because back in that day, you had to send your cultures off. They didn't have like a 5-minute strep test or anything like that. You had to send your cultures off, and they had to grow them and figure out what was going on. And so we had no clue. So they just started putting all kinds of stuff in me. Right? They had me in a negative pressure TB room because they didn't know how contagious this was. They were scared, and I was at UVA, and they were scared. And anyway, I went into this very, very, very deep sleep. And during that time, like, they measured my brain waves and everything, not a coma, but not a regular sleep either. It was a shift in consciousness for sure. But they did some tests, of course, like spinal taps and EEGs and things like that while I was out. But I had this experience where I met the all that is. Like, I went into, like, people think of it at like the Matrix. And I think that's a really good way to describe it, because it is, well, and it just changes. It's a constant state of flow and change, and communication with just thought. I mean, it's just, you just ask a question with no effort. Like, it's just, oh, there it is, and there's the answer. And there, you know, it's just very, very interesting. And it was like I could talk to all these different beings at the same time. And basically, at that point in my life, I was on a trajectory of like leaning more towards drugs to cope with what a shit show my life was, right? My life was a shit show because I'm picking up everybody else's energy and I've got nowhere to go with it. So I'm like, you know, I'm numbing myself out, really, is what I was doing. And this was a whole total redirect, like step away from fear, step into that love space, but I was shown how to do it. It was kind of embodied in me. And when I woke up, they did these tests on the bottom of the feet. Some people might know it. It's scraping the bottom of the feet. It's called a Babinski's test. And it's a neurological test to show how much brain damage there is. And they're like, she's mentally retarded. And what you see is what you got. I was not able to have any voluntary movement, not even like eye blinks. My mom tried to get me blink once for yes, twice for no, and I couldn't make that happen. And meanwhile, they're doing that eye test. You know, going, do you know where you are? What's your name? Asking you the questions. And I'm reading it on the collar where it says you of a husp. I'm like, dude, it's labeled on your clothing. Why are you know, why are you asking me these questions? Like, it's right there. And I was so full of curiosity. Like, there was no fear at all. It was all like, just look at these people running around and saying these things. And like, do they really mean it? And do they realize how funny they are? And my mother was told by the neurologist, I still remember him, and he was like, you know, the premier neurologist of, you know, haughty-taughty at UVA kind of guy. And he was talking to my mom, and my mom was real eager to know what my prognosis was, how long it might be before this. And she's putting these little nuggets out there, like, how about when she can play her clarinet? How about when she can ride her horse? How about when she can, how long do you think it'll be, doctor? And he was like, lady, you need to get a grip. What you see is what you got. You're looking at a nursing home.
Oh my gosh.
And I still remember the sound. A few seconds later, my mom said, can you step outside with me? And I heard that doctor, I think it was his feet hitting the wall as she backed him up. And I could hear her yelling, you never give a prognosis like that while you're in the room with a patient. Because you've now just limited what she thinks she can do.
Exactly.
And he was just blown away. But he's like, I'm just telling you how it is. I'm trying to be realistic so that you can plan, you can move forward. And my mom was a huge patient advocate throughout her life. So no wonder I picked her, right, when I was in the choosing line. And, you know, 2 weeks later, I come walking in for my follow-up visit with that same neurologist and able to express to him how good I was doing and how hopeful I was. And he was just like, I don't think his jaw ever closed.
Oh my gosh.
And the really interesting part that I want to share with folks, because this is huge, what started my body being able to recreate neural pathways was a life-threatening situation. Right? So out of struggle comes healing, comes growth, comes newness. And that's the message here. And I'm so glad I got that when I was 15, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
What happened was, after I woke up and we went through all this stuff, and they're giving me like Winnie the Pooh things to watch. I'm like, oh my God. Oh yeah, she loved Winnie the Pooh when it was, and I'm like, I'm not for, but I'm entertained by this, still so entertained by this, right? Because I'm filled with love. I was literally infused with love, and fear was taken out. So it was like, okay, this is like the most entertaining TV show I've ever seen, and it's real life. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Even though I'm in a hospital gown and IVs and all the things. But anyway, the interesting thing is they wanted to do a CT scan. They just had this new whatever, how many billions of dollars they had to pay for their proud piece of CT scan equipment. So they get me over there, and of course I have pneumonia, so I've got the nasal cannula. And because I guess I was moving around and wiggling before, they had for some reason they had taped it on my face. And I guess maybe when I was in that, deep sleep stuff or whatever, they just want to make sure it stayed there. But it was moisturized oxygen. So there's water in there. Okay. So this young man is putting me onto the table, and when he goes to take the oxygen canister off, he tilts it. So the nasal cannula floods with water. I'm laying flat on my back, have not made a move in 24 hours, and my body, with the flood of water coming up my face, sits up, rips that thing off my face, and flops back down.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom is yelling at that guy, "What are you doing, trying to kill her?" And then she looks at me and she goes, "Oh my God, you just moved." And it unlocked. It took that reflex, that life-threatening thing, for the brain to go, "Oh yeah, unlock this key." Right? So out of what could have been death to the human vessel came growth and being able to re-navigate the human vessel. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting story that I still can tap back into that energy.
I mean, I can feel that you can go back to that place. And your story of the NDE is so similar to what I've experienced with plant medicine. Like my first really profound experience, almost word for word, about being entered into the stream of consciousness and being released of fear is exactly the same. And so there's so many different avenues for people to access this. And sometimes we can intentionally choose them, and then sometimes the universe thrusts them upon us.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So after that experience, you said that's what started your path as
really dedicated myself then. I was like, oh, afterwards music made such a difference. That's why I went into music therapy. I was like, I want to use music, the power of music, to help heal people and help them keep moving forward, unlock those things that they think. Because I came out of a very dire situation. I had like nothing voluntary. So certainly I could show other people, and infuse them with maybe a little bit of hope or something like that. And so that's when I dedicated my life. And of course, being that empath, I'm working in psychiatric hospitals, I'm working with children, I'm working with geriatric patients who are in dementia and things. And I'm still picking up all this energy. Still picking it all up. Still don't have the tools to work with it. So it wasn't until that meditation class that it was like, and once I had that tool in place, I was just like, where's the next? What's next for me? And so my life for the past, I would say 14 years has been going a total different trajectory, and I've been working with so many different people, still in some of those other capacities. I still work with people with autism, helping them overcome their challenges and their neurological diversity, right, and how their body is integrating the world. I still do that and get great results with it for sure. And I also am helping people in this other space, helping guide empaths to unlocking their spiritual gifts and clearing that energy so that they can move forward and create that life that's on their soul path. Yeah.
Beautiful. I have so many questions. What you said triggered so many things inside of me. And one, you were talking about working with children with autism, and I'm one of 6 children. My 4 younger siblings are all adopted and have very special needs. And what popped into mind is my brother, who was born at 26 weeks. And he was like the first baby out of Yale New Haven Hospital with such severe problems. He lived at the hospital for a year and had open heart surgery, and he could fit in the palm of your hand when he was born. And so he's now very delayed. And the thing about him, though, and basically nonverbal, he can say some things, and he now is at a point where he can toilet himself and dress himself, but he has this connection to music, and I think you probably experienced that over and over again, and not just music, but sound. He spends the majority of his day putting together radios and microphones and listening to sounds. And I would love for him at some point to work with someone like you who has more information about what's been your experience about, like, what is that a way to connect that people who are nonverbal, are they connecting using sound? I mean, we all connect using sound. Well, what kind of response do you have to that?
So without meeting him,
right,
and like kind of checking things out a little bit, one thing I can share with you is that most people that I've come across with autism have super senses in one or more areas, and they get hyper focused on those senses, and it could be in a good direction, like an interest. And I don't believe I just said the word good, because I really don't think of good and bad anymore, because, if it results in, if what we thought was negative, like being sick, it results in something good, like being healed, like, okay, let's do that again.
Right. Was your NDE actually bad?
No, it changed my life. It probably saved my life.
Yeah. The same way, yeah.
There were several things that I can say as a wide open, clairsentient empath that really, I was trying to commit suicide when I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Oh my gosh.
Running away at 8, things like that. I mean, it was pretty extreme. Like, I wanted out. I wanted out. So, by the time I hit being 14 and able to sneak away and smoke some weed and do the things, I was on that trajectory, which is not necessary. I mean, for some people, they choose that path, but that wasn't my path. So I needed that redirect, right? I needed that. And getting back to your original question about your brother, some people find that it leans them into an interest, and other people, it becomes that alarm system. It becomes so hyper vigilant, it sets off that fight, flight, freeze response in the nervous system. And then they're fleeing things. Right? They're fleeing those because the way the senses are being interpreted by the whole neurological system, it's like there's a short or there's static. Yeah, and so it creates that that little blip, and that's what it is. And I wish more people would understand. Whoa, like, let that person be. Let them process that. I think of it this way. This is a really good analogy that I use when I'm working with family members, is when you have someone who is struggling, I don't care if they're neurodiverse or not, if you have someone who is struggling with what they're trying to process, quit talking, go away, let them have some time and space to finish the processing. It's kind of like, if you have, everybody's used a computer, I think, and if you get that little spinning thing or that hourglass thing, don't keep clicking. Don't keep clicking that mouse. Don't keep trying to type on it. You're just You have to wait for the RAM processing to finish.
That's a great analogy.
Please let people clear their RAM. Let them, that random access memory, they need that time. And so many people go in. They go in, and that's like the worst thing you can do, right? Right?
That's wonderful advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. For everyone, because we all have different speeds of processing.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to say about your brother is, if you have not yet I would get with a specialist who does augmentative communication. There are different forms of augmentative communication where people will get the speaking iPad program and that they can type. Other people will write, and some people need the facilitated to where their hand is being supported, that they would be able to write. And so there's many ways to communicate. Picture communication can be effective as well. So those might be avenues to explore.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people's minds have been opened up to that kind of facilitated communication with the telepathy tapes. Have you listened to that?
I have started listening a little bit to the telepathy tapes. I've known about a lot of that, for many, many years. And I think one of the people who really helped get augmentative communication kind of more widespread was Stephen Hawking's, right? Yeah. And beautiful, beautiful, brilliant mind locked in a body who couldn't communicate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to empaths, and I have so many questions here just about, I wouldn't describe myself as an empath. I mean, I can empathize, but I'm not the type of person that absorbs other people's energy just naturally. I think that for whatever reason I've been able to, I can take it in and it can filter out. And I'm good at identifying what's mine and what's not. I'm going to be delicate in the way that I say this because we live in the society where negative connotation is put on people who are upset by triggers, and this has become a discourse in our society where people put trigger warnings on things, and then other people are like, poo-pooing that, and I think this gets to empathy at its core. And I wish we used different language to talk about those things that trigger our emotions and how people are empathetic, because that current discourse about trigger warnings and people being overly sensitive, I don't think is very helpful.
I am going to challenge that.
Yeah, please do.
For a moment, because when we look at safety and security and we look at threat, they're two opposite ends of the same stick. Okay? And if you think about a pendulum swinging, okay, it gets further and further. When it has momentum, it gets further and further. It gets more into fear, more into threat, and more into safety, right? It's going back and forth, right? And oftentimes, going back to my illness, oftentimes it is that threat that then creates the solution. A solution is created for that. And so we are in a pressure cooker right now. Our society and the whole world is in a pressure cooker right now, where we're all looking at where people are, worried about keeping the world green, and let's look at all climate control, climate this, climate everything, and then other people who are like, no, don't worry about that, keep burning the fuel, and we're getting further and further apart, right? There's becoming more of a distance, but it's that expansion that's going to eventually bring us back together, because we're going to feel so separate. We're going to look for the solution, which is togetherness.
I love the way you said that. Yeah.
So that's one way to look at it. And the other beautiful part about where we are right now, which is so amazing, is that we're doing this on so many dimensions, right? We're doing it on war and peace. We're doing it on gender identity. We're doing it on just all of these platforms, like all of these different aspects of our lives. There's, Republican, Democrat, whatever. It's all being pushed, and it's all being kind of fed and fueled which is really, really great because it's creating this situation. We went through COVID, separate, 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 isolate. That is not the answer. People are knowing it's not the answer. And people are coming out of the woodwork. Wait, how can I connect? How can I be? How do I feel you? How do I, I missed you. I've got to be in your space. Like now we're realizing that we are social, right? And we are looking at that. I was talking with a friend yesterday. We were having this communication. She's very much so in the corporate business world. Female in the corporate business world, and we were talking about these different things, and she was like expressing how many people are coming to her talking about, I love your energy. You bring great energy. Whenever you walk in the room, the whole energy shifts. She said people who would never, ever, ever talk about energy are starting to key in to energy because this is the Great Awakening. This is where everybody's popping online. And once they start realizing the energy aspect of it, then they're like, where's my people? Where's my tribe? Where's my energetic connection? Where do I fit? And how do we bring this forward? And it will be through this that everyone finds their oneness.
I believe in that 100%. You said that so beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I hope the listeners really heard that. I got tears in my eyes actually as you were talking about that, because it was just the way that you described the moment that we're in, because I believe that too. Like it's a very high stress time where people are feeling a lot of fear, but more and more I think that they're realizing that it's the fear that's dividing us, and it's the fear that is disconnecting us, and that we need to get rid of the fear. And all of these things are created to put us in fear mode so that we are compliant, and the more we push that away, the more we can connect, and we can raise the vibration of the world and make the world a better place.
Well, I'll add on another analogy to that, because I have a stack of papers upstairs, okay? It's been a busy year for me. And my 2024 filing is still in my file cabinet. So I've got a stack of 2025, right? And it keeps building, but it hasn't hit that critical threshold yet that I'm like, stop everything else, I'm filing these papers. It has to hit a threshold. And that's where we are. We're watching this go further and further, and the fear building and building and building. We haven't hit that critical threshold yet. So just hang on, write it out. Like Sarah said, let things go, right? The way I perceive moving forward through things in life that you don't like is not necessarily pushing against them, but more saying, okay, I see you. What message do you have for me? What can I learn from this? And then what can I do to either go around or solve, or just be okay. Just be okay with it being there. And, because sometimes when we start pushing on things, it's resistance, and it actually helps things stay stuck sometimes. So being in that flow.
Exactly. Exactly. And being in that flow allows you to listen to your intuition and receive messages about the way that you're supposed to walk forward in this life.
I'm going to go back for a minute to talking about that therapist, because what he did was unlock the intuition in a way, because it changed it to flow. Get the ping, act on it. Get the ping, act on it. It didn't matter the outcome. Get the ping, act on it. Get the ping, act on it. Because when we don't act on it and we just store up the pings wondering, we're not in flow.
Exactly.
We're not in flow.
Exactly. You stop. And then if you doubt them too, you also stop the flow.
Right.
And so even I tell people the smallest little things, if you just have an intuition to go get water, or, go, even the smallest things, the more you listen to them, the more it will speak to you. And then the bigger things will become unlocked.
Yes. Oh, yes. Just like anything else, like if I were to call you and you don't answer your phone, and I call you and you don't answer your phone, I'm only going to call so many times before I say, well, I'm just going to wait for her to call me back. Right? once we connect and we have this great conversation, they're going to grow, they're going to deepen, right? And it's the same way with, working with spiritual energies is, we've got to have that flow. We've got to have that reciprocation. And there's a lot of faith to that. When you're told to go do something at a particular time or to take a turn or whatever. There's another interesting story that I have that speaks to this. And not being in resistance and just being, kind of enjoy if you can. One day I had done a couple of readings with people and little healing sessions, and I was really in a great space, and I'm driving down the road and I'm thinking about the errands I had to go. I had 3 places I needed to go. And I'm like, I'm going to go to place 1, and then from place 1, I don't know where to go to place 2, so I'm going to have to look it up and then GPS there. I wanted to go to Edward Jones, the financial investment, kind of place. And so I little did I know there are many Edward Joneses. Like, I thought it was just one in my little town of Danville, and I didn't realize there were many. But I'm driving down the road, and I'm thinking I'm going to go to place 1, and then from that parking lot, I'm going to look up Edward Jones and bebop right over there, and I'll stay on time. I'm just going to magically be that empath who stays on time. So I'm driving, and I'm like, oh, I missed my turn to go to place number 1. I missed it. And while I'm beating myself up for missing my turn, because now I'm delayed, right? The 3D brain says, oh, I'm delayed. Now I'm going to be late. I turn on the next one, so I'm going to come around the block, right? And what's right there? Edward Jones.
Of course.
Edward Jones is right there. So I zip in the parking lot. And I walk in and I'm like, hey, I want to find out what I have to do this kind of investment. I want to set up an appointment. And the lady says, well, are you so-and-so? And I'm like, no. And she says, well, so-and-so has an appointment for 1 o'clock. And I look down at my phone and I'm like, 1 o'clock? It's 1 o'clock now. I'm looking around. I'm like, well, I don't suppose she's here. Could I speak with so-and-so just to set up the appointment and find out what I need to bring for the appointment? She says, I don't know. Let me ask. So she rings back to him, and he's like, sure, I said, I need 5 minutes. That's it. I know what I want to do, and I just need to know what to bring to my appointment. So I go back, I talk to him and find out all the details, and I'm like, thank you very much, walking out with my appointment. And as I'm walking out, saying bye to the receptionist, guess who's walking in? The other person for her appointment at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
It all happened. You couldn't make that happen. Right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes being out of resistance and being in joy, like, so what if I miss that turn? Where is it taking me now? Where's it taking me now? Yeah. So that's a really good example of that non-resistance and just being there, right place, right time. Perfect.
Yeah.
Can't make it up.
I love that, and that happens to me all the time. And it's so wonderful, and it just makes life feel magical. Yeah, which brings additional joy to everything that you do. Yeah,
for sure.
So to talk more about empaths, this is another question that might come off the wrong way, but I think might open up a larger conversation about what it means to be an empath. So I've encountered people in my life who very strongly identify as an empath.
Yes.
And the way I've seen it manifest is, I guess to put it bluntly, like people can use it as an excuse in their relationships with other people and their way of engaging, and an excuse for bad behavior, for, well, I'm taking on everybody's energy and that's why I'm lashing out at you. Right. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, I'm not denying that those people are not empaths, but they're clearly not managing it. What do you have to say about that?
There's not much of a difference between the empaths and the people with autism. Like, right, when their sensory stuff is misfiring, it creates that fight or flight situation. And with the empaths, when they are so bogged down with the energy, sometimes all they can do is like, burst out. I used to have bursts of rage. And there were times when I was in my family pressure cooker that things would get so hard for me. Like literally, I went out, I had a horse, and I went out, and there we had this huge heavy door on the barn, on the little granary end of it, and I would just slam that door for about 10-15 minutes. It was a man's version of going out and chopping wood, right?
Yeah.
I needed to get that angst out. Otherwise, I was just going to explode. So that's very, very real. And what I have to say about folks like that is to recognize that it really is not a very functional way to navigate this 3D world. There are solutions. There are tools you can learn to ground off that energy. And I know it feels very, very, very unsafe for empaths to release that energy, because more's going to come at them. And it's like, you know, I'd rather deal with the devil I know than the one I don't know. That's one thing. But then the other thing too is that I won't be able to know how to be in certain situations if I can't feel the energy. And that's where the problem lies. At least it did for me. I would call that a problem, because it made navigating in this 3D world very challenging, to where it was painful for me. And it even manifested as physical pain, as disease states. Okay? And that can happen. That can happen. And what happens is, when we're carrying around all of that energy and not releasing it, we're taking it on, we're bringing it into that body level, because that's where your chakras live. Your second chakra, that sacral chakra, is the storage unit for that. We're overwhelming our system, and we haven't discovered yet that there's better ways to navigate, and better ways, like using our clairaudience, using our clairvoyance, using our claircognizance, learning how to set the energy in a space before we go into the space, so we're not walking into we're not walking into this horrible situation where people are, dumping all their stuff on you, right? And so learning those tools can really, really be helpful, particularly for those ones who just aren't managing it. There's a lot of people who commit to, they really want to, at the time they're invited, they commit to some kind of family or friend event, and then when it comes down to it, they don't show up. They can't make it, because the thought of being around people is like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I've known multiple people who, whether it's empaths or healers, like professional healers. I worked with this one shaman one time who, she had done an intensive session. It was like a 3-hour session with somebody, and she was sick for 2 days after that, vomiting, and because of taking on that energy. And you don't have to take it on, is what I'm trying to say. There's tools to use to be able to learn how to work with not only your energy, but other people's energy, so that you can keep your space clean and still know how to navigate successfully. Actually, much better, because your seeing, your hearing, and your knowing is a lot more clear and true than the feeling. Because when you're picking up someone else's feeling, their feelings can be feelings can be confusing. You can be a little off with your feelings, right? You can feel because if you take a moment and take a breath and just imagine what it is to feel anticipation and excitement. And where does that land in your body? What does that feel like in your body? It's energizing.
Yeah.
It's landing where for you?
In my belly.
In your belly, right?
But there's a fine line between that and nervousness.
That's exactly where I was going to go. If we said, okay, let's imagine the last time we were nervous, because it's the same. It's the same stick. It's two ends of the same stick. So when you walk in and you feel this jittery hit you in the gut, is it nervousness? Is it excitement?
Yeah.
That's not clear. There's confusion in there. So it's no wonder that empaths, tend to really get confused.
Yeah. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about all of the different labels that we put on what at its core is probably all empaths, is all people not being able to manage the fact that they're taking in other people's energy. Like I'm thinking about somebody I know who it manifested as OCD, and my mother, I would say, is probably an empath, but she has been an anxiety-ridden person who's basically designed a life to stay at home so she doesn't have to interact with other people. So when you're putting other labels on this, how can people kind of expand their thinking and maybe give it a different framing, this empath framing, and start to sort out what is theirs and what's other people's?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a preface here. Everything in the universe is vibration, and vibration creates frequency. So I always say frequency and vibration. Anybody who's into music knows that kind of stuff, right? Frequency and vibration. We are actually made up of frequency and vibration. All of the solid items here are frequency and vibration. And that's why they can pick up and hold energy. That's why we can pick up and hold energy. Or when we walk into a room, our energy can shift based on, we can feel happy. We go into a middle of a argument over somebody's will and our energy shifts pretty darn quick, right? It's because we're coming up with this other frequency and vibration. And so I want folks to realize that the words that we use have frequency and vibration too. And so empaths, I'm using that word a lot today because it's a word that people are relating to in this day and age. But if any of what we were talking about, picking up energy, using energy and feelings and emotions to sort through things, or you find that you're done peopling at some certain point in your week, or you're one of these people who like every weekend I have to be in nature the whole entire time and I have a friend who's a school teacher. She's magnificent. And every weekend, you're not going to find her anywhere in a building because she needs all that nature to clear her space, right? But there are ways to do that in 5 minutes or 10 minutes and not have to take 2 days, right? But the thing is words have vibration. And so rather than thinking of what does it mean for you if you label yourself as an empath, think about it as, okay, this is where I am now. What do I want to create for myself? What direction do I want to take? Because when we hold the vision of where we want to go or what we want to create, okay, even where we want to go is creation. We're creating that journey for ourselves. We shift our frequency and vibration out of problem and into solution, into dream, into, oh, that feels so good. We change our vibration and then we can access the intuition in alignment with what's my next step, not how will this ever end, right? And so the words that we use in speaking with ourselves, this right here, our monkey mind, our words that we use are very, very important, and little subtle shifts can help change our vibration.
I believe that too. Yes, definitely. Yeah, and it's the same idea of like what you think about and what you put energy into, that grows. So if you're fixating on a problem, oh, I've got this problem, how am I going to solve it? How am I going to solve it? How am I going to solve it? But like you said, thinking about instead, where do I want to go? Is simple, but really profound.
I recently heard this the other day, and I'll get out of the spiritual space for just a minute, which you can't really do because spiritual and mind and body is all connected, but I want to approach it from that perspective, of the more mental perspective. When you say you have a problem, if you want to look at the details of the problem. Just the facts, ma'am, right? Quit the story behind it, just the facts. For people who are too young, that was from a detective show where people would tell stories. No, ma'am, just the facts. I just want the facts. If you look at your problem as just the facts, just the details, then you're not focusing on the problem aspect of it, right? You're not focusing on the stuckness. You're not lending your energy into that. This is not changing. You're able to say, oh, that needs to change, that needs to change, that needs to change. This is feeding this. So if I change the feeding, the whole thing changes. So then you're able to find your way to the solution. And that's a more mental way to get there. But we're mind, body, and spirit. So gotta talk that way too.
Yeah. He's all the things all at the same time. Let's talk more about ways that people can differentiate between what's theirs and what's not theirs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, kind of the same way I just talked about looking at a problem. So when a person finds themselves in a place of overwhelm, the very first thing, okay, I don't care who you are, the very first thing that you can do for yourself to help yourself shift gears is take a deep breath. And I don't mean a deep breath up into the chest and filling your lungs. I mean, get it down to your belly, because it's literally stimulating your autonomic nervous system and helping you step out of that fight or flight. It's helping you shift out of a flee the situation, fight at the situation, into, okay, I can approach this a different way. So sometimes it takes a few of those breaths. And folks, if you tend to be anxious, or you tend to be depressed, or you tend to get into these emotional states that are not easy for you to shift, practice those deep breaths when you don't need them, because then you'll have them when you do need them. Okay, it's not going to happen unless you practice them. So take that deep breath, and then going inward, right, and sitting it with the feelings, with the emotions. Like if there's one that comes up, I used to actually almost say I could taste the emotion. Like I could literally feel it through this digestive gut area so much that it would be like venom in my throat. And people who lash out understand that. It's coming up this way and out. And when you sense yourself feeling that, say, okay, what is that? Like, just say, what? What are you? And then, is that mine? Is it someone else's? Right? Just ask the question. And if it's someone else's, let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
It's not serving me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But just ask the question.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get into so much resistance with it. We stay stuck. Yeah. Instead of just saying, wait a minute, this is energy. I can do that. Right.
Yeah.
And having a little bit of seniority over what's going on here. Ask the questions.
Yeah. I love that term, seniority, like taking control. We have all the power. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. We feel like we do, but we do.
Yeah. And one thing I would like to share as well, when we were talking about empaths and the struggles that can come with that, right? Just like, I'm just going to use lawyers. Like if we decide to be a lawyer as a career path, there's some great things about it and there's some cons about it too. There's some struggles about that, or medicine or whatever. It doesn't matter. You could be a dog groomer, and work with animals all day and still have some struggles with it, right? It's part of life. It's how we grow. Being an empath often signals that you have these other superpowers, just that's the first one that came online. That's the first one to activate. And so learning to sort through those is very, very, very helpful.
Yeah, and empowering too. Yeah.
And that leads into that seniority of this is mine, right? This is I'm managing this.
I think more and more we're realizing and seeing, I think we have for a long time, but more and more that nonverbal people with autism have extraordinary gifts, and they just might not be what we can see directly, and people are now more open to figuring out and acknowledging and allowing those gifts to grow.
As a society, we have gotten out of fear of, I don't know what to do with these people, because that's where it started, is I don't know what to do with this rage. I don't know what to do with this. Back in 1988, when I graduated my music therapy program and first got board certified, I literally went into this program on this autistic unit, and I watched this child who would sit on those old radiators with the heat going through them, till the point where they had burns on their butt because they didn't sense.
Wow.
And they didn't know that they were actually causing harm to their body, their physicality. And people were like, I don't know what to do with them. I don't know. We can't keep them off of it. They pitch a fit if we don't put them on it. And there was such a fear aspect of it and a lack of connection. And it lends itself right back into, whether you're an empath, whether you're working with people with autism, sit and just say, okay, here are the details. Here's what we're trying to navigate. This is what we have to work with, right? This is our starting place. And thinking about it that way, and then, okay, what's mine? What's not mine? What can I change and influence? What can I not change and influence, right? But we are, as a society, stepping more into that space where we're taking ownership for all of this.
Yeah.
And soon, people will be really in a space of knowing, deep knowing, that they have a lot more influence in what's going on around them than what they realize. Being able to set the energy, of a space so that this can happen, but everything else that can't be that, can't be that.
Yeah. Beautiful manifestation. Yeah. We create our realities. So Laura, what are you excited about? What are you manifesting? What's coming up next for you?
So what I am doing is stepping much more powerfully into this journey and working with others. Anyone who's listened this far along knows that my life has been up and down, all around. It's been physical, it's been mental, it's been emotional. There have been marriages that went all over the place, and now being in this place for the last, I've actually been teaching and working professionally as a clairvoyant medium, and now I've added animal communication on as well, and sound healing, of course. I've been doing that for 10 years. Wow. Literally the memory of my daughter saying, look at the logo I designed for my mom came up yesterday on Facebook. And we're redoing the logo because I'm relaunching, I'm reopening up my whole Creating Harmony with Laura space. And I'm launching much more enriched coaching programs for people who want to do it on an individual basis. I have a class path, actually, where I teach the empathic tools for folks. There's a clairvoyant process because we can get a lot more information. It's actually helping you open up your clair abilities and using all of those as you move forward. But I teach different levels of those courses, so those will be available for folks. And I am starting a community as well for people who want to have their tribe, have access to their tribe, where we're going to get together twice monthly. One is going to be a themed class. Spirit's going to tell me what's up for the group, and we're going to do a whole class on how to use our tools, with this particular theme. Last month in May, or this month in May, it was on nurturing your divine feminine. So it was all about balancing the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So the first person that actually signed up for that class was a male. And he recognized that he really was running all out down that divine masculine, and it was going to be a crash and burn if he didn't do something different.
Yeah. I want to meet this man.
Yes, 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 yes.
No offense to all the other men listening, but that is unusual in my experience.
Yeah.
To have that acknowledgement.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. I've had a couple recently come through. Again, two ends of the same stick, right? And if you're doing all out one, not good. We got to find that balance or that teeter-totter, right? That teeter-totter. I was using the metaphor of the yin and the yang, right?
Yeah.
That balance, that sense of flow. One is in the other, right? That always is. One is in the other. So I'm doing that, and then the second class is going to be, okay, this is what's going on in my life, and maybe what's coming up or what just happened. How do I set the energy for that? How do I use the tools? This overwhelmed me. What do I do? Because this is all about self-healing.
Yes.
When I first started, I named the course Energy Tools for Spiritual Growth and Self-Healing, because that's where it was at. And now it's like, okay, you empaths and healers, climb on board the Laura bus. We're going to unlock those spiritual gifts, and we're going to create lives aligned with our soul path, our soul purpose, because we are here to bring this into fruition in this world. We're here to change the world, to take it to its next step as we reach toward that 5 days. So that's where I'm headed. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I love all of the people that I encounter, and now as I'm doing this podcast, I meet more and more people who are speaking that same language and know the same things. And like, there's no rule book or guidebook, but we're all in the same place at the same time, and it's amazing.
You were talking about, before we got started here with the podcast, you were talking about how some people really lean into tarot cards. That is a way to get information. It's a structure, it's a framework, and some people love it and won't do anything else, and other people are like, oh no, that's not for me. Okay, it doesn't matter. The reason that so many people are stepping into this teaching, guiding, leading space is because everybody is going to lean towards a different person's vibration.
Exactly.
And they're going to find that framework, that container, that sacred container for spiritual work that is in vibration with that person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been
Yes.
such a wonderful conversation. I hope this vibrated in some way for each of you. And just thanks again. Thank you for tuning in to Goddess in Training. I hope something in this episode stirred your knowing or softened your heart. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it, or leave a review or comment to help others find us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to hear more conversations like this, please consider supporting Goddess in Training on Patreon. For more tools and offerings to deepen your intuition practice, visit goddessintraining.online. You can also join the Scroll of Sashat on Substack for twice-weekly stories of how I followed my intuition. The music for Goddess in Training is Madre Ayahuasca by Arkawa, and you can find more of his music in the link to his website in the show notes. Remember, your intuition is not a mystery, it's a memory. Keep listening.
Resplandor del fuego, estrellita, tabaco santo, fuerza de rape, soplo de luz, soplo encantado, viajecito bendito.